and we are live on Sunday, October 30th. And today is a little bit different. Today is a little bit exciting for me, and I think it'll be exciting for you guys too. It's Sunday, and it's kind of a time to hang out with friends and family and stuff, and that's what we're going to do tonight. But we're going to talk about some really cool stuff tonight as well. Um, with me tonight, as always, I have got Terry, Iron Auditor, with me. Terry, how are you,
Hello,
sir?
everybody. How's everybody doing tonight?
And the big reason that we're here is we have a very, very special guest tonight. A awesome guy that's kind of been there and done that and been through it. So we have Spencer the King Fisher with us. Spencer, how are you, sir?
Doing well, thank you.
So we're going to have a little bit of hangout. We're going to talk to Spencer about his UFC time. We'll talk a little bit about other MMA stuff. We'll talk about some of his new ventures and talk about what he's kind of into nowadays and such. And it should be a good time. So I hope everybody in the chat hangs out with us and we can get a lot of information out there and just have a good Sunday evening for us. Anyway, I keep forgetting, Terry. I keep forgetting that the people around the world don't always have evening time like we do. So it's
Right.
So, but Terry, who do we got in the chat, if you can tell us, sir?
If you'll give me just a second, let me switch screens here. If I can get it to work, I'm trying here. There we go. For the moment, it looks like I have Goosebump 801, I have Zerzeus, and I have ZXL Master. That's the ones I am able to see at the moment. I can see 9 in there, but it's not showing me everybody in the chat.
Okay, excellent. And I'm sure they'll start filling in here as we get going a little bit. Right off the bat, Every says, you're a legend, King. The Sam Stout fights were amazing. And I second that, by the way.
Yeah, it takes two, but
Yeah.
Sam, it takes two to put on a great fight, and Sam brought the best out of me in the UFC. But my toughest fight is an underground fight that a lot of people don't know about. But a lot of people say it's the best fight they ever saw. It was me versus Josh Neer, and we had a 5-minute round fight in Iowa, and that's kind of what pushed us both to the UFC, and we made a great friendship out of it.
Awesome. So let's just start from the beginning then. Tell us a little bit about how in the world does a guy decide that he wants to go in there and live a life of punching people, get punched in the face? What made you interested in living that life?
Well, my grandparents raised me. Both my parents passed away when I was younger, and my grandparents, after raising 9 or 10 kids of their own, they took me and my sisters in and try to put me. I was always rowdy kid, and so they thought put me in karate would be the answer to get me to calm down. Well, that was the opposite. I'd seen all the blood sport movies, and I wanted to do that. And then, of course, I ended up getting my black belt, and then I got beat up by a boxer. And
Okay.
I thought, man, this karate is junk. So I saw the first Ultimate Fighting Championship come on, and I thought, hey, this small guy can do that. I could do it. So
Right.
I started cross training in mixed martial arts in Asheville, North Carolina. I was a 16-year-old kid, and I would drive back and forth to Asheville, which was 2 hours away from where I'm at Cashers, and started training. It was the only guy that was legitimately trained in mixed martial arts. We would do the kickboxing, the JKD, Jeet Kune Do, like Bruce Lee's system.
Mm-hmm.
We started doing that. They turned me southpaw, and I started training and started fighting in local shows, and met Reggie Holland, my boxing coach, and then I started, winning all the tough man contests around here. Then they started having ultimate fights, like they called them ultimate fights, just like the UFC, with no weight limit, no time limit, just fight until some guy submits. And I fought all comers and won, and then went up to Virginia to the U.S. Valley Tudo up there, and got my butt handed to me. And I knew I needed to start training a little bit more, taking this training more seriously, and met Mark Coleman and Kevin Randleman and Brendan Lee Hinkle in Atlanta, Georgia, and started doing privates with them. And the Militich gang came in one time. and I was able to watch Jeremy Horn submit these guys. And Jeremy Horn was, if you look at him, he wasn't a bodybuilder physique, and I immediately latched onto those guys. I'm like, who are these guys? And uh, ended up going to a seminar the day after Jens Pulver won the world title from Kyle Uno. Whenever they had the title up, he was the first lightweight champion. And I went to the seminar the day after that. And a week later, my wife and I packed our stuff and moved to Iowa.
Wow. What year was it? Well, the first UFC was 93. Is that right?
92 or 93. I don't remember. But
so back then,
I actually, I was going to I don't want to interrupt you too much, but
no, you're fine.
But a lot of people don't know this. I took the Gracie Challenge. I drove out as an 18-year-old kid. I drove all the way to California, and I took the Gracie Challenge. Me and my girlfriend at the time packed our bags, and we drove out there. And I've always been a Rickson Gracie fan, and I was kind of bummed out when I got out there. They put me on the meat cleaver. They wanted to show Gracie Jiu-Jitsu was number one, and put my head on chopping block. And I fought 3 different guys out there back to back, and the only question I kept asking is, "Where's Rickson at? Where's Rickson at?" And they're like, "He hasn't trained here." And I was ready to go home then. So,
no kidding. So let me ask you this: so in North Carolina in 1992 or 93, I imagine it was still pretty hard to be able to find much instruction or anything, as long as MMA and jiu-jitsu type stuff, because that was, we hadn't been exposed to it yet.
No. Matter of fact, I got in some trouble a couple of times. Not bad trouble, but being a kid that wanted to fight, I was going to all the local dojos around the area and asking them to fight. Well, they were used to point sparring karate, and I was learning kickboxing, and there was a big difference in above the waist kicks and low kicks. And I was told that I was cheating because I was leg kicking them. But I actually got ran out of 3 or 4 dojos, because I was there to fight, basically. And they're like, "Get the hell out of here!" They didn't want no part of that. And then I literally went to, I don't know how many dojos that me and my students would go into. It was like the old school Gracie days. We would go in there and say, "Hey, we're here to fight," and they would say, "You guys want to kumite," and we're like, "Yeah, whatever you want to call it, but we want to get down." And it wasn't after a round or 2, they were sending us on our way. So
no kidding.
they weren't big fans of that. So I got kind of a bad reputation. I was the guy, and this is true. In one of the other podcasts, that one of the guys I fought, he talked about I'd carry a video camera around with me. Mm-hmm. And anytime it was going to go down, or anytime we had a challenge, I would videotape it. And I have some of those old fights still that I need to transfer to DVD.
Absolutely. That's so awesome.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. When you kind of got into doing this, and first of all, let me say this. I've been in the gym with Spencer, and I watched Spencer literally volunteer to get leg kicked. And this kid was rocking the house, and Spencer's going, "Oh, you got a pretty good kick." And I'm thinking, pretty good kick? Like, how the hell can you take that? Like, I mean, this guy is like, to say Spencer is tough is an understatement of the century. This guy is like a rock. No kidding. But so when he's saying that he's in there leg kicking those guys, I can't imagine walking in off the street and going in there and going completely full MMA style stuff with him when he's still fresh and hungry and eager. That'd been brutal.
Oh yeah, that was in my youth days, and like now I'm paying for it. Like whenever you saw me being able to leg kick, if you notice, it was with my lead leg, my left leg. I'm a southpaw, so I stand with my right lead, but I was stand orthodox because all the guys I trained with throughout time, majority of them, I'd say 90% of them were orthodox, and they'd kick my lead leg. And over time, it just desensitizes. I mean, like, I'm not bragging or anything because it's not a good thing, but like the nerves, I think I've destroyed the nerves in my leg because I get guys kick me pretty hard, and no one has kicked me as hard as Anthony Hardonk. So, but I've taken 1 or 2 from him, and I was like, no more,
So let me ask you this. So you go out and you start training in a little bit of different aspect after you've seen that the karate thing probably wasn't going to do the trick. Right. You start getting some kickboxing, then you kind of introduce to some other stuff. So when did you have your first in the cage sanctioned MMA fight?
It's not. I had MMA fights. I don't know if you guys keep up with the world of Tough Man, but I was supposed to fight the world champion, heavyweight champion Charles the Headhunter Williams, back in '98, '99, and he showed up, and I showed up, and they promoted us to fight because he had won so many of them that this was a small event, and everybody complained about this guy fighting because he was borderline pro. So 240 pounds rock muscle, and then you had me 5'8", 185 pounds at the time, and he came in, and I think he thought he was going to bluff me out. So he's like, let me talk to you, kid. And I went over to talk to him. He's like, I could kill you with one punch. I'm like, I'm going to take you down. I'm going to break your arm. And he's like, what? You're going to do what? And then he pulled out. So, and he had put money up on his end, and the fire department matched it, and so it was going to be a winner take all. And then my instructor was also the referee. He tried to bully everybody into giving back his money, and he's like, no, if you don't fight, you forfeit. All these people paid to see you fight. So this guy in the crowd, the judo champion, 5'8", 300 pounds, he stepped up to fight me, and I thought this was gonna be a walk in the park. And I got in there, and I kicked the guy in the head, and he grabbed me by my ears and headbutted me, broke my nose, and then threw me on the ground and started beating the piss out of me. But he had hair down to his butt. And in the rules meeting, I had short hair. I've always had short hair, and I had it short like it is now. And we said in the rules meeting, hair pulling. I'm like, that's good with me. And he said yes. And he had hair down to his butt. Well, he had me in case of katami, which is a scarf hold, if you guys don't know what that is. And I grabbed his hair and wiggled and got enough sweat and blood between us. I got on his back and beat the piss out of him after that. And then I started winning as many tough as I could. They stopped me at 5, and then went out to Iowa and did a Tuesday night fights. They have Tuesday night fights in Iowa, and I fought every chance I got. I would fight in the Tuesday night fights. The Militich guys, after a night of hard training. And I'll throw this in real quick. I've never been as nervous as I was on a Wednesday and Monday night sparring class at Militich as much as I wasn't fighting. Like, I was much more terrified to fight on a Monday or Wednesday night in our gym than any fight I've ever had, because we had Josh Neer, Jens Pulver, Jason Black, Jason Medina, Marshall Blevins, U.S. Muay Thai champion, like Rich Franklin. We had all the top dogs in there. So I was much more nervous on fighting on a Monday and Wednesday night in the gym than I was at the UFC. So
I guarantee.
Hey, sir, Avery's talking to Jeremy, talking to Spencer, talking about the Jeremy Stevens fight there.
Okay. Yeah.
Jeremy had actually, Josh Neer and I, after we fought, we became really good friends, and he actually moved in with me, and we made a tight bondship, a tight friendship, and to this day, it's the toughest fight I've ever had in my life. But he also trained Jeremy Stevens, and Jeremy had trained with us beforehand a couple of times, and I'd spar with Jeremy, and whenever they brought me the fight, I was like, at first I wasn't going to take it because I thought we'd made a friendship, but when they told me he had already agreed to it, I was like, well, if he said yes, and I'm not going to say no. So we fought, and the rest is history.
Well, let me ask you this. So when did you actually get involved with what we know as Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu now?
I had gone to a Machado seminar, and I got, I was doing submission wrestling like before that, in Asheville. Anything without a gi is not jiu-jitsu, in my opinion. Right. If you're not wearing a gi, you're not doing jiu-jitsu. Right. So, but I had a guy from Novignal, Hob Samora black belt, train me. His name is Andre Yushariba, and he's a multiple-time world champion. And this guy was phenomenal, one of the best guys I've ever rolled with. And he came in and stayed with me for a couple of fights and got me ready for some fights. But I never put on a gi officially until I met Carlos Lemos Jr., I was a 10-time UFC vet at the time, and he made me start at white belt. So, after I'd already been submitting black belts, in the fights world. But he made me start at white belt and work my way all the way up to black belt. So
Wow.
UFC 10, whatever year that was. So
Okay. So
I mean, my 10th UFC appearance.
So let me ask you this. So after you're kind of in the crowd now, people, you're traveling around, you're fighting all that stuff. When did it become real to you that this is just what I'm going to do? When this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to earn my paychecks this way. I'm going to try to make a career out of fighting.
It was the only thing I was good at. I played soccer. Yeah, I played other sports, and it didn't click with me. I mean, I know being a team player and all that, but I didn't have a wrestling team in my school. It was K through 12, was all one school, and there were like 27 kids in a class, and there just wasn't enough people for a wrestling team. So I found karate, fell in love with that, and then when I seen the UFC, I knew I was missing a big gap. So started training kickboxing and Dutch style kickboxing, and just after I met Anthony Hardonk, I was strictly Thai. I thought Thai was the only way and the best way, and then I met Anthony Hardonk and went to Holland and visited a couple of gyms when I went to Germany to fight out there, and the Dutch kickboxers you can see and all the events they have around the world, they're the top dogs out there. So
brutal stuff.
Yeah.
Every says, Spencer, one question: who is the hardest puncher you've ever fought? He said he's guessing either Sam or Jeremy.
No, believe it or not, I'm not. This is not a knock on Sam, but I was never ever hurt by him ever. And it's weird because me, Jeremy Stevens, and Matt Wyman were all sitting down at a UFC summit meeting when they brought all the UFC fighters in, and Eve Edwards came up and he asked us. He said, "Hey, I got to know you all three fought him. How's his power?" And we all three at the same time said he doesn't have power. And then he ended up knocking Eves out. So. Knock on wood anytime you say that, But Sam was also a world champion kickboxer. Right. He was the UCC world champion. I mean, but I guess being a southpaw and cutting the angles that I did, he just wasn't able to land clean shots on me like that. But he's probably hit me the most. But the hardest person that's ever hit me, and I sparred with Vanderlei Silva too, but the hardest person that's ever hit me was probably Jason Black or Jens Pulver.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. And I'll tell you, for anybody who doesn't understand, when as a boxer, even when you fight a southpaw, it is a whole day. Like anytime I've ever work gloves or anything with a southpaw, it's almost like I have to like flip a switch in my head to remember my angles and stuff, because you end up stepping right into that left hand so easy, and it's like a freaking pain in the ass, to be honest. But
you always want to keep your lead foot, whichever one you are, you want to keep your lead foot on the outside of theirs.
Yes, which is hard to do when you're crossing foot with southpaw.
Right.
But so anyway, so when you decided, you've been doing this a while at this point, whatever, you're having the shows, you're making a name for yourself, and I can't remember which fight it was, but the fight, and it was before UFC, and you went. It was probably to this day one of the most brutal fights I've seen. And I can't remember that guy's name. I hate that. That you guys put on a show.
It's probably Josh Neer. Josh Neer, everybody that was there live at the event, so it was the best fight they ever saw. We fought 5-minute rounds, and
brutal.
It was like I went in with 6 stitches in my eye, and one of my students was an ER doctor, and he took the sutures out, and then I went before the commission. They pushed on my eye, and like, how long ago that happened? And I'm like, oh, that's old. Stop pushing on it. And then after they were done, he stitched me back up, and we put Vaseline on it. And the referee said they cleared you. I'm like, they didn't say nothing about it, and they let me fight, and it never came open.
Wow. Well, that fight was awesome, man. Like, I mean, I've watched that fight a couple times, just, I think on YouTube or something. And it's just like, oh my God, what a brutal war. Like, and you got, and neither one of you guys were given an inch.
No. That was the first time I ever flew the flying knee. I jumped halfway across the cage, and he took me down right after that, And if I have to be honest, if we're going by today's judges and rules, we kind of were going more by pride rules then. And, but like, if you were going by today's standards and rules, Josh probably should have won that fight because he took me down all 5 rounds. But I was a talker, when I'd fight, I'd say, don't hold me down. I'd call him names and stuff. And he'd actually let me up, and then we would slug it out again and he'd take me back down. And if you watch that fight, I get him against the cage the last 15 seconds and
Yes,
just
that's the fight.
open up a barrage on him. And when the bell sounded, he dropped. And I'm like, don't fall now. You're taking away all of it. But we both clashed, but we made a great friendship after that, and great training partners. And to this day, I think Josh Neer is the toughest MMA fighter I've ever met. His mentality, I cornered him when he fought Joe Stevenson, and he got knee barred, and it popped. We could hear it. I mean, whenever he got knee barred, Pat and I could hear it literally pop from when we were at in the joint. And we came back, and he's like, my knee's gone. And Pat was going to throw the towel, and he literally said, I have another one. And he went out and he threw a flying. He's like, don't do that. I have another one. And he went out there and he threw a flying knee on Stevenson and just pulled off. Like, the guy is tough as nails. When he fought Melvin Gillard, you could see his skull from where Gillard elbowed him, and it just fired him up.
That's just crazy.
Whenever I think of the word MMA fighter, real fighter, Josh Neer is the first person I think of.
That's awesome. So who was your first actual UFC fight?
My first UFC fight, my first pro fight, they don't have it recorded, was I fought Derek Noble, and I almost got scammed on that deal. So I'm back. I'm going to answer your question, but to backtrack, I was living with Jason Black and Jens Pulver and Tim Sylvia. We all had an apartment. And Jason said, hey, this guy, this promoter, is wanting a guy to fight his guy, at 185. And I'm like, yeah, I'll do it, And they're like, well, this guy is a kickboxer wrestler. I'm like, all right, yeah, I was going to do it. And it was for Phil Johns. And we went up there, and the cage, I'm not kidding you, it was a ring that had carpet padding on it, and then a canvas over it. And I ended up triangle choking him. And then they thought that it was a work. They thought that there was something wrong, that I was like a smoker or something. Like they're like, why this guy, why is it, this guy's got more experience than what you said. I'm like, no, he's only fought in amateur events. And they tried to not give me my money. And to this day, that fight is not on my official record, but that was my first pro fight. And then I ended up fighting a couple other guys, Neer and Josh Neer, along the way. But I think when I knocked out Kyle Watson and did the stupid stripper dance after that, that's what kind of sealed the deal on me going to the UFC. And I fought Tiago Alves, my wife said. Tiago Alves is who I fought. So
that was your first UFC fight?
Yeah, that was my first UFC fight.
So what was the difference between fighting? What did you notice the difference between fighting on a regular smaller type venue and going to the UFC with it? Because at that time the UFC wasn't like you guys built the UFC, really. I mean, from the generations on up, built the UFC, but at that time you were still, was there that huge culture shock at that point, or was it just like another day at the office, or was there anything different?
Oh yeah, it was. Anybody that tells you their goal is not to fight in the UFC's lying. Like, the UFC is the top tier when it comes to fighting. Pride would have been good. I would have loved to have fought for Pride, but the UFC is what kind of everybody recognized, brought them into the sport, was the UFC. So it was a dream of mine to fight in the UFC. And I called my family and I told them, I was going to fight a miniature Wanderlei Silva, and they all came out and supported me, and it was the highlight of my career, was my first fight in the UFC.
Oh, heck yeah. I'll bet that was exciting. I mean, just to know that's like, wow, man, just a different world to be there. You know,
Well,
and how many?
I knew, I didn't know anything about him. I had him confused with another Brazilian guy that fought out of the same team, but it didn't matter. The end result was going to be the same for me. I was just going to go out there and let him fly. And if you ever watch that fight, there, I'm smiling from round to round. I mean, I was just so happy to be there, So
Oh
it
hell, I
was
bet.
really a dream. Yeah, it
Now,
was a dream come true.
is that the one that I'm trying to think how that fight finished? Is that the one where you?
I triangled him.
Yeah, yeah, I remember that. I remember that now.
Yeah,
Yeah, you. That was how I was trying to think how that fight ended, but I remember that was a
yeah,
submission thing too. So, and that was a war too. I mean, and that guy
yeah.
was he. I mean, obviously, I don't know, but he looked like he was stout, like he was.
Oh yeah. Well, later on he would get popped for. I don't want to go there, but
Right, right.
yeah, yeah. But he went on to beat Matt Hughes. He fought George St. Pierre for the belt. So he had a good career in the UFC.
Yeah, I mean, he was always put together anyway. You know what I mean? You
Yeah,
could tell
yeah,
he was
yeah,
very athletic and he had a lot of
yeah,
skill for sure. So,
yeah.
um, so how many total fights did you have in the UFC?
17.
Wow, man. And that's what's crazy now because it seems like these guys now they come in and they do 8 or 9, 10, and they just kind of disappear. I don't know if it's I don't know. I'm obviously nowhere near that level of anything, but it's just it's kind of to hear somebody say it, and I'm gonna tell you that, and I'll tell this people in the chat too. If you and I was reading this too from if you don't know MMA very well, Spencer Fisher is a true legend, a fighter's fighter, and he says you are truly getting a treat here, and I absolutely agree. I don't know if you're familiar with Spencer, but if you watch him fight, he fights forward all the time. He's just tough, tough, tough guy, just brutal, just a fighter's fighter, really is. And to have him on here is obviously a real blessing and really humbling for me. But I know that a lot of times too, you were absolutely you never. I don't think you ever come out of the cage without leaving everything in there. In my estimation, it certainly
No,
didn't look like it.
I tried to always give the fans, from a fighter's perspective, I'd always try to leave it in there. Weird stat, but it's true. Every fight I had in the UFC, the guy either took me down or attempted to take me down. Every fight I ever had in the UFC. So
Really,
like,
nobody
yeah,
wanted to bang with Spencer.
yeah, well, yeah, like Stout, in our first fight, I took it on a 2-day notice and cut 21 pounds for it in 2 days. And I knew if I didn't finish him in the first round or two, I was going to win. But I've watched that fight several times. You learn more from your losses than you do your wins. And
Sure.
I've watched that fight and I try to score it every way. And I watched it without the sound on. But I felt that I won that first fight as well. But it is what it is. So there were some that I shouldn't have won that I got the nod on anyhow. So that
Sure.
happens.
Absolutely. I think that's probably with anything. So,
Right.
let me ask you this: how much do you think the fight game's changed?
Tremendously. I think today's fighters are more athletes, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but like the time that I was coming up, we fought because we loved it. When we fought, if we were dogs, our tails would be wagging. I mean, like we loved it. We loved the truest form of combat. Is mixed martial arts. So okay, so but like hello.
Yes, you're with us.
Okay, yeah, I
Yep.
just charged again. So, yeah, but like, I think today's guys play for points more, and they don't go for finishes. They don't leave it all out there. They give so much to the takedowns now, but but that's part of the criteria. It's not a kickboxing match, but they just I don't know. I think today people play it safe, play it a lot safer than what we did. I would
Right.
always go for broke when I fought out there.
Right. Now, have you got to judge any fights? Have you ever done that?
Yeah, I've refed several and I've judged a few too.
So as far as judging aspect, what are you looking for as an MMA judge? I'm just curious about that.
Damage and control.
Okay. So overall damage and control.
Yeah, that's the two most important things I think. If you're beating the hell out of somebody and you're noticeably rocking them and hurting them, and you have to take in consideration about some guys. Like if you look at me the wrong way, I would bleed. I think I bled in most of my fights, but that didn't necessarily mean I was losing. But whenever you see a guy get hit and his knees buckle, or he goes down to one hand, you have to consider that damage. Or if I take you down and I'm elbowing you from the top, and I'm doing significant cutting you open from that, that's a lot of damage. But on the flip side, if I've seen guys get taken down and get beat up from being on top, you know what I'm saying? Like they're being guard and the guy on bottom was elbowing the crap out of them. And I think that should have gone the other way. I think the guy on bottom should have won that round. So if I thought that, that's how I scored it, you know, so.
Right. So I was kind of curious, like, you know, as in comparison to like grappling tournaments and stuff, like, you know, obviously like the guard is considered a neutral position. Right. Do you take that into consideration as a judge in MMA fight, that this guy's, he's in guard, but he's defending himself well. He's not really
well, yes and no. If he's going for submissions, it depends on what the guy on top's doing. You know, if the guy put you on your back, well, then he's there because he not because you chose to be there, but because he chose to put you there.
Right.
So, but what are you doing with that position when you're down there? You know, there are a lot of guys that take you down that they don't go for the finish; they just go for points. And I don't agree with that. You know, like if you take me down there, do something. You know, don't just hold me. Let's fight. So, and then you got guys that go for stop submissions. You know, you got to look at that and take that into consideration. So,
absolutely. And what year did you have your last fight?
I don't know. Yeah, let me ask my wife. Emily, when was my was I retired? 2012. Did you hear me? Hello?
Are you still with me, Spencer?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
I can hear you both. I'm not sure if you can hear each other, but I hear you both.
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you, Chad.
Okay, I just had a little bit of Wi-Fi issues here at the house. It gets kind of crazy on me sometimes, so bear with me if that happens.
My wife said 2012 was my last fight.
Okay. And since then, you run your own gym, right?
Yeah. I run my martial arts gym. Mm-hmm. It's called Glory Martial Arts and Fitness, and it's in Sylva, North Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah, but I do have a couple guys who fight out of it, but that's on them. I don't claim to be a fighter gym. I claim to be a martial arts gym that you come in, get a good workout, you know, and if you decide to fight, that's on you if you decide to take it. But in order for me to corner you, you have to make sure that you're there at least 4 times a week, you know, and this is I'm talking about guys with jobs, because I'm not gonna, you know, I don't care about winning or losing, but you can get hurt serious if you're not prepared.
Right. Absolutely. So let me ask you that you focus a lot on Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu now.
Mainly. Yeah.
Right. And who do you have your black belt under?
Carlos Lemos Jr. is a Gracie Baja world champion. Multiple time.
Okay. Now, do you you're still pretty active. I remember when you and I trained a little bit down there together. You talked about one of your highlights was getting to train with the GOAT. Was when you got to actually train with Hickson.
Yeah, I've got to train with him 3 times now, but I got to do the private with him thanks to Scott Coker, and my wife set that up for me. But that guy, he's forgot more about jiu-jitsu than I'll ever know. So he's just he is the Michael Jordan of jiu-jitsu.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this: how much do you think jiu-jitsu's changed?
A lot. A lot. Yeah. I agree with what Hickson says. You know, in the beginning, it was all about the submission. You know, and now people play the points. You know, and you have to adapt your style. And you know, if that's what they're going to go by, the criteria they're going to go by, you know, by a takedown and hold, then you have to play by those rules. You know, so you have to up your game in sport jiu-jitsu. But sport jiu-jitsu and fight jiu-jitsu. I know a lot of people will argue with me about this, but there is a huge difference.
I agree. I agree. Let me ask you: do you think the leg attack game has changed it? Do you think that has a lot to do with it? Kind of seeing that where everybody's attacking everything below the waist now, or is that just another addition to the way it's changed?
No, I've always played with leg locks. I've always done that for the longest time. I know a lot of people they frown upon them, but I think it's mainly because they don't know them, or they
Right.
don't know the counter to them. So, but I like them. I've always played with them. And when my first fight, I set back for a leg lock on Tiago, and I could hear it popping, but I got punched in the mouth for my troubles. And Matt Hughes really gave me a word of wisdom. He said, "You know better than to set back for the leg," So I'm like, "Yes, sir." So like, you don't go for a submission, unless you know for a fact that you can regain the position or you got 100% locked in. But I knew better than do that. But I was caught up in the moment, and I thought, hey, I've done these in practice all the time. Let me go for it. So, and like I said, he punched me in the head for it. So.
Yeah, well, that's kind of like what my coach down there, Zach Wilds at Tataris. He was kind of when we were preparing for the fight down there and stuff, it was all about the position and control and using jiu-jitsu for a position dominant thing for ground and pound and work something into submission. And he was even telling me, he's like, we're not going to worry about unless something just feeds in there and you can just absolutely just spoon feed a leg attack. Don't worry about it in that cage. Worry about getting yourself in a position to keep from getting punched in the freaking face. So
That's right. That's right.
But that's I guess that's another thing too, is you see guys like Gordon Ryan, and that's one thing you have to say about him is he still does attack submissions pretty hard, even in this modern jiu-jitsu world where it seems like guys are more apt to kind of get in there and like you said, maintain position and move around position to position to get the points and stuff. And he's actively working to try to get submissions pretty commonly. So that's kind of a breath of fresh air.
Exactly. Well, if you'll notice, most of Gordon Ryan's attacks are from the bottom when he goes for leg locks. He doesn't mind giving a position because he's not getting punched also. But majority of his attacks feed from one to the next, to the next, to next. Like his last fight against Andre Galval, he went for leg locks and then climbed up, got his back and choked him. So like he's got a great coach in Danaher.
Danaher's he's amazing.
He is a real technician, and like my wife said you could listen to his podcast or him talking and put you to sleep because he's got that subtle, smooth voice, like
very monotone.
Yeah, monotone, exactly.
So. Yeah, and it's funny because like if you actually listen to him coaching, like the audio clips that they have him coaching, and when he's talking to his guys, he's literally calling Gordon and he's calling him by his first and last name. Yeah. He's like, hey, Gordon Ryan, work this for the heel or something. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I bet he knows that you're talking to him.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. When I fought, I could hear my wife. It didn't matter if it was in a smaller place or if there was in a place with 30,000 people. I could always hear my wife, right hook, left straight, right. I could always pick her voice out of the crowd, so.
That's awesome. Awesome. So what was your highlight of all your fighting career? Your personal highlight. What do you think was hit home the hardest?
In the UFC, I was the main event for one. I was the co-main event for two of them. But the Stout 2 fight, was probably my biggest highlight in the UFC. Of course, some people say the flying knee, which was great. That was a great finish too. But just the sheer will of Sam and I to go out there, we did it 3 times, and I think we got bonuses all 3 times, so I have to go back and check on that. But as the UFC grew, so did the purses and so did the bonuses. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
But I made a great friendship with Matt Wyman and Sam Stout, both guys I can't say enough good things about. Super stand-up guys and tough as nails, both of them.
So let me ask you this. So, and I'm assuming too that the guys are making a little better nowadays than what they used to, but they're still not making what they should. Is that a fair statement?
No. And I think the Ultimate Fighter, like, if you don't win the Ultimate Fighter, you're stuck in those contracts, from the Ultimate Fighter, and those are horrible contracts. At least they were. And if you think about it, you hardly ever hear from the guys who never made it. There's a handful that either were runner up, but for the most part, most of the other guys kind of drifted away unless they won it, and then some of them went on to be champions. But the contracts that they got you stuck in are horrible. Because you remember when you signed that contract for the Ultimate Fighter, you're agreeing to those bout terms and that agreement. So I think if you fight and earn your way onto the show or onto the UFC, I think you're better off that way.
Oh, gotcha. So
Yeah.
let me ask you
But
this.
they're not getting paid what they should. Only a handful of people are getting paid. So.
Well, that's what I've noticed too. I mean, when you see boxing events and Showtime Boxing, and when Mayweather does his events, and these guys are just making bank, and then you see guys that are at the top of the UFC, some of the toughest SOBs on the planet, and putting on a show and a war in there, and it's like, I mean, yeah, I get it. By my standards as a policeman, yeah, you're making good money, but by overall standards of what you're doing to your body and what the hell you're going through, it's just night and day. It's not, it's like it's not really worth it, really. I mean, from the aspect of, gosh, I mean, just like, and I mean, I'm not trying to bring up Connor here, but it's kind of funny when he was saying it being silly, but he's like, they're going to pay me for half a effing fight. You know what I mean? And it's like, yes, I get it. It's not really half a fight, but he was making light of the fact that, you could go make a lot more money boxing and not have to suffer through all the stuff that the MMA guys do. And that's a shame, in my opinion. I mean, those guys.
Yeah, yes and no. Either one of those sports, there's plus and minuses to both of them. But the physical abuse and mental abuse that you're putting your body through, at the end of the day, regardless of what kind of money you're getting, you have to really decide, is it really worth it? And
Right.
Looking back on it, there's a lot of things I would have done differently. I can't say that I wouldn't have done it again. At first, I started thinking I would never done this again, if I had to do over, but it was what I was good at and I love doing it. So it was, I would have done it again, but just certain things that are done differently.
Let me ask you this, and I just want to pick the brain of the king for a minute here. If you were to pick a fighter, and I was to say, let me just throw a name out there, and you think about like, we'll just use Connor since I just said him. What's the way that you're going to coach somebody to fight a Conor McGregor type guy? Is he, because he's kind of an unorthodox type striker too, isn't he? I mean, as far as the way he's kind of odd, like he's kind of hard to time.
He's a southpaw, and you see, I think he does the best when he's loose and relaxed and goes out and does his thing, because it's hard to train for someone like that, to where you might find a guy maybe like a Jens Pulver that is going to stand and bang with you, and it's got that heavy lead leg, Yeah, you just have to do the best you can with sparring partners. The biggest thing, you have to work on where his weaknesses are. Take him into those deep waters, wrestle with him a little bit. Or if you're a striker, to be first, to don't wait on him, because if you wait on him, you're going to get caught. And he was a fantastic counter striker, as we've seen with Aldo. Fantastic. So
we have seen that with Floyd.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. But a lot of feints and fakes, and mix the wrestling in there. Like Nate Diaz showed the way to beat him, Chad Mendez was on his way to doing the same thing, but taking on a 3-day notice, whatever it was, they couldn't. And you got to remember, Connor was a huge 145. Because look, he's fought at 170. He's undersized at 170. 55 is where he should stay. But it's hard to get motivated. Like the old saying says, that when you wake up in silk pajamas, it's hard to get motivated. Or what are you fighting for?
Right.
What is your reason for fighting? So
where did you feel best at? Changes. What weight class did you feel the best at?
When I was in shape at 155, 170. I was undefeated I only had 2 fights in the UFC at 170, but at my natural, we're just walking around weight. I felt fantastic. Not having to cut weight was great, but ultimately I should have been at 145, for my size and height, so, but
Right.
I like to eat. So
I remember when I was saying, I'm saying this for the people in the chat. When I thought this fight was going to happen, I was probably aggravating Spencer to death because I was messaging him all the time, be like, "Hey, what do you think I should do about this? Or how should I eat this? And what should I do about this?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, you got to eat at least 5 or 6 times a day." And I'm thinking to myself, like, "Gosh, man, I'm fat. If I eat 5 or 6 times a day right now, I'm not going to be able to cut weight."
no, that they're the probably one of the best camps I've ever had was with Matt Hume, and Rich Franklin went out there. Chris Lieben was out there. Matt Brown went out there. I mean, we had a who's who who's out there, but they also had a dietitian out there and a strength and conditioning coach, and we were drinking 2 gallons of water, and then cut it down to when you got to the week of the fight to a gallon, and then to the liters right down. I mean, they had it right down to a science, and eating 5 times a day, snacking throughout the day. Rich Franklin was the most consistent and most what's the word I'm looking for? Strict. He was really strict on the things he ate and his workout. And then of course you had Jeremy Horn that I remember one time we were all three riding in the car together, and Jeremy was eating ice cream. Like Sunday was a cheat day, but Rich was like, "Hey, you could look like me and be strict and not eat that." And Jeremy said, "Or you could fight like me and eat what you want." And and so I'm like, I'll go with Jeremy's route. So I'll run the extra mile or whatever I have to do. So
I like food too much.
yeah,
For
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
So what's been going on in the world of Spencer the King lately since the UFC and MMA gone?
Yeah.
You're running a YouTube channel now, is that right?
Yeah. So it's called Send It FFH, and I'm doing gun reviews. It's just something I started up with the past couple weeks. Doing gun reviews, and I got to get familiar with them, but I've reached out to Ruger. Ruger's hooked me up. My ultimate goal is to get something from Accuracy International. They're the top tier when it comes to firearms, rifles, and stuff. And I've been harassing the guy to death, Scott, that runs the marketing department over at Accuracy International. But if you don't know anything about guns, I'm probably talking gibberish. But when it comes to top tier rifles, Accuracy International is the top brand out there. There are other good rifles out there, for people that can afford. But
Sure.
there's some great rifles out there, and I just been getting my hands on some and shooting them and letting them know what I think about them. And the more frequent, I'm not good with being on front of the camera. Getting asked questions, I have no problem with, but trying to come up with dead silence to feel something, is takes some time and to get used to it. So
Yeah, I just started my YouTube back in the spring when that idiot come to town and decided to pick a fight. But that's the thing that I learned is the most is how to look at the camera and talk and actually maintain some kind of a personality, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
sure,
Because it just didn't make sense to me at first. Well, one of my mods, or Terry, if you don't care, would you go over and see if you can put a link in the chat to Spencer's page? And if you guys are interested in firearms type education, you know that I'm all about that Pro 2A type stuff. And Spencer, as you guys can already tell, he's a great guy. He's full of information. And I would really appreciate my people to consider going over there and checking him out and giving him a sub and a like. It would really be a great appreciation on my behalf.
I'm gonna also start doing like one of my good friends. I don't know if you're aware of who he is, but he was a YouTube sensation back in the early 2000s. His name was Reggie Warren Jr. And he talked about beating up all the UFC fighters, but the guy, I brought him out for my training camps. The guy is a legit badass. He's trained with everybody from Dan Hardy to Ludwig to me to like he knows the Lozans. He's friends with the Diaz's. He really knows. He knows a lot of the guys out there, and is friends with them. And we talked about doing something like we're doing right now. talking into the camera and doing a podcast on what's going on. What's going on in the world, because he got offered a celebrity boxing match. So we're going to do that. And then I talked to Tim Sylvia, about coming on here and doing the same kind of format, just talking about old stories, changing the name on some of the stories because I don't want to cause any problems, but, to be honest, and to put it out there and, because there's like a lot of stories that I was there part of or witnessed firsthand that I could tell, and then for the stories that I heard that I wasn't there, I could have my guests tell those stories, because the infamous one, like with Lee Murray, knocking out Tito Ortiz, that I was not there, but I trained with Lee. Lee stayed with us, and super good guy when he was over here. Of course, when we went to London, a night and day different person. I don't know if you're familiar with who Lee Murray is. He did the largest bank heist in history.
I believe so.
He did that, but he also knocked out Tito in the back of an alley. So, but that's for another day, I guess. So, but yeah, but I have a lot of stories. I have some problems with my short-term memory. Like I can remember my very first phone number, but I can't tell you what I did yesterday. So I have some difficulties with some things, but I feel the more frequently that I do this type of thing and jot down notes, the stuff to bring up, I can do it. So
awesome. Well,
hey, what is the name of the channel? I'm unable to find it, so that I can
send it FFH. And if you type in like 300 Win Mag Night Force Scope, you can find it. I don't know, like I'm not running it. One of my students is running it. So like I don't know. I do the video, then he's supposed to post them.
He does the hard work behind the scenes.
Yeah, he does the editing. Yeah.
So let me ask you. So you're obviously an outdoorsman.
Yes, love hunting.
And you're quite the gun guy.
Yeah.
And do you like fishing, or are you just a hunting guy?
Just a hunting guy. I've never been able to get into fishing too much, but or any small, like I like big game. I like to hunt big game stuff. I have an uncle that lives in Alaska, and he's been trying for the past 20 years to get me to come up there and hunt with him. But no, you have to do the draw and the tag and all that stuff up there. But he comes out here and he hunts with me, down in Georgia and in Kentucky. So, but that's I just got back from Kentucky yesterday. And the rut is in, people, for you hunters out there. The rut is just now started. So make sure you put your time in the woods right now. So,
it's funny you say that, because the other night I was coming home from work, and, all the way up through the summer, occasionally just off the highway down here, there's this little patch of clearing down there. And just randomly, you would see a small group of young bucks. There's 2 or 3 of them together, and they would be over there together at night, just kind of, doing their thing, like when they're still in their bachelor groups. And the other night, probably a week or so ago, I drove by there, and I don't know how I looked, but the way the interstate lights are down there, it shines down there so you can see them, right? And I go down through there, and as I pulled off the exit, I seen it. It just so happened it's kind of it's a little bit thick, but I could see this rack cutting through the brush, and there was a doe in front of him, and he was chasing pretty hard, and I was like, oh, that's a good sign.
That's a good sign. That's right.
Too bad it's not during the daylight hours, but know, that changes as we get closer to mid-November around here anyway. So
that's right.
So how's your hunting season going so far?
Well, I just got back last night. I took my daughter 2 weeks ago, and she shot her first deer, her first doe, and she's 7 years old, and was tickled pink. And my 15-year-old daughter, she tells me she does it for nostalgia, for me, more or less, for she's like, I could care, but she said she could care less about, she had a buck walk in front of her, and one that I've named Bebo. And because you got to name your deer so who you're talking about when you talk about it. So but she's like, I seen him, blah blah blah, he was this big and this big. Well, we have our trail camera, and I looked at it, I'm like, no, we don't shoot that one, we don't we do not. But to her, I should have just told her to shoot, but she it was during the youth gun season, but she couldn't, she didn't know how to zoom it out. I'm sorry. It was too close and she couldn't figure it out. And I'm like, that's why you need to practice more. So,
Yeah.
but this past weekend I went out and, I just went in with a lease with Chris and some other guys from North Carolina. And, we got 400 acres out there and, went out, and my biggest complaint is about trespassers. We've had more trespassers on that property, and you know me, like anytime I see somebody, I post their picture on Facebook. Hey, do you recognize this person? And sure enough, we did. And every person I've gotten a hold of, 4 of the 5 people that we've caught on there so far, and I live all the way in North Carolina, and so I sent a picture. I'm like, hey, you recognize this guy? And they said, oh, I didn't know. I'm like, so you didn't realize when you passed the fence to go in, or all the signs every 20 yards we have no trespass. Say, you didn't see any of that? Oh no, didn't see any of that. And I said, well, this is your first and last time of me telling you. So,
well, I got 2 things to say about that, Spencer. First of all, you got to quit posting those trail cam pictures, all them monster bucks you got down there on the farm.
Yeah, I know. That's true too. But I don't tell anybody where they're at, so I just tell them in Kentucky. So.
And then secondly,
you notice I didn't say what county I was in.
True. That's fair. That's fair. And then secondly, if you've done that kind of investigative work, maybe you need to be doing my job.
That's what my wife says. So if you could put this much energy in finding this person, you need to do that. Which I thought about doing. I thought it'd be fun to be a bail bondsman, or be hired with a bail bondsman or bounty hunter or something like that. I think that'd be a lot of fun. So
I've actually done a little bit of that here, local, to help out some of the bail bondsman guys that I know. And it's a different world, you know what I mean? Because like, it's not something that we normally do, and the rules are a little bit different type thing than what we're used to.
Right.
But it could be exciting. There's no doubt about that. That's for sure. So,
so let me, I know there's a lot of rules that we have to abide by, and I have a hip replacement. So, I'm not as fast as I once was. So I would need a partner in crime to do that. So.
Right. I got you. So let me ask you this. So do you hunt in both the Carolina and Kentucky every year? Is that how you do it?
No, what I usually do, like, I used to live in Iowa, and I hunted in Iowa, and the biggest deer in the nation are there. But you have to be a resident there. But then Illinois, you can buy an over-the-counter tag. But I used to live in Ashland, and built friendships up there. And Chris Melvin is the one who found that lease that we got on, and it was just by chance that we found it. But I also hunt in Georgia as well, So, but my wife tells me I need to find cheaper hobbies. So, because making the drive back and forth to put in food plots and to do it the right way,
See, so. I'm so glad that I have my headphones on right now that my wife can't hear what you just said, because if she thought that she was in good company, I would probably be grounded. For all the money that I spend on my silly hobbies and guns and stuff. So
that's exactly. My wife said if I put half the effort into that, into doing something with my gym or my house, she said, you would never hear me gripe or complain. I'm like, well, I don't enjoy that. So
yeah, but it's not as fun as getting to go out and shoot guns.
Exactly.
So, she overheard me.
That's how my wife is. She's always got one ear.
We get the wife alert. Yep. I said that Spencer's wife told him that that he needs to quit spending so much money on his guns and hobbies. And I said, I'm glad I got my headphones on so she can't hear you say that.
That's right.
But no, she's pretty good about that. I can't say too much. She lets me kind of do what I want to do when it comes to that. So
does she ever hunt with you?
She actually, the year before last, we went hunting a little bit, and she kind of got the itch for it. And we went out rifle hunting over here in West Virginia, and she got the itch for it a little bit. And then last year I actually got COVID. And I was out. There was no way. I couldn't have even walked on the hill. There was no way. And even when I was out, she like gets the rifle and digs out the camo and the whole 9 yards and goes on her own and actually has a few sets on her own. And,
awesome.
I was like, I don't even get to go, so, but, no, we are, she's pretty supportive in the stuff, and she kind of tends to like the kind of stuff I do. She likes the guns and stuff too, and the hunting and fishing and stuff. So I'm pretty blessed there for sure. So,
Right.
um,
Well, I think I ruined my 15-year-old's experience. I took her out. I talked her into going, but I let her sit by herself for the first time last year, and I said, "Here, like here." She got a 243, and I went about 500 yards away from her, and a buck came out, and I told her, I kept texting her, "Stay off your phone, stay off your phone." And the fact that she was messaging me right back told me she was on her phone. Well, I hear a gunshot, scares me to death. I go up there. Long story short, she missed the deer, but she was amped up. She was like, "All right, now I know why you got the itch for this. You go buck fever." And so she goes back out with me the next morning. We go in the exact same spot, and I didn't think I had to talk to her about her phone, so I turn. You turn your phone off. So I'm sitting in my stand, and it's starting to get light out there. And my mistake, I went out too early. I went out. We got out there about 5 o'clock, and it didn't get daylight until breaking daylight to about 7, 6:30, something like that. Well, I hear this mumbling. I'm like, "What in the hell is that?" And I'm like, "Holy smoke!" So then I looked down at my phone. I'd missed phone calls from her. I text my wife, and I'm like, she's like, "I'm on the phone with our daughter right now. She is scared to death." And I'm like, "What?" She's like, "She's hearing stuff." I'm like, "Well, she's not going to see anything." I'm like, "She's supposed to hear stuff, But she said she was on the phone with her, having a conversation, trying to decide, "Lucia, are you 15 feet in the air?" "Yes." "Do you have a loaded rifle with you?" "Yes." "You are safe and fine. Don't be worried about it." "Well, I can't." And she's like, and of course the screen is lit up so you can see her face. I came up over the bank. I could see her from 500 yards away with her phone on. I'm like, "Oh my gosh." So yeah, so I think I burned her out a little bit on that one, but hopefully she can come around again and come back out with me.
It's funny because every story that I ever hear about, no matter how much a person thinks they're into hunting or not, the first time that they're in the woods and they get that opportunity to have that buck fever feeling, everybody reacts the same. It doesn't matter.
Yep.
It doesn't matter what your background is, what your experience is. And to this day, I'm 43 years old, and I've killed a lot of deer throughout my life. And to this day, it doesn't matter. I still get the same feeling
every time. Yep.
Every single time. It does not matter, And there is something too, just about being out there in God's creation and smelling the smells of fall and just been, and it's such a therapy. You know what I mean? Even I can go and,
absolutely.
I could go out there and I could sit in a stand or in a blind or hell, just at the bottom of a tree, and just sit there and just relax and enjoy being out there. It's just a different type therapy. So,
I've lost fights over it. I've lost fights because I was in the woods more than I was at the gym. And it was right after my Sam Stout 2 fight, the biggest fight of my career. I had to fight Frankie Edgar, and I was spending 6 hours a day, just like I was when I fought Stout, but it wasn't the same intensity. My mind wasn't there. I kept, I would get up super early, drive to my property that I had in Iowa, and then I'd make it back to the gym for the morning practice. Then I'd head out again, and it was just crazy. And she told me, she's like, "Hey, your head's not in the right place," and it wasn't, and I paid for it. So
yeah, in the hard way.
But I much rather hunt than I'd fight. Yeah, I got more excitement out of hunting than I ever have from fighting. So
isn't that crazy? That is so crazy. And I remember the first time. It's crazy because I can remember the first squirrel I ever killed. My dad took me out hunting, and I'd been a couple times with him before, but I wasn't big enough to carry a gun. He just let me walk with him and stuff. And he'd teach me how to be quiet in the woods and stuff, and kind of going through the whole thing. And then he started working with the gun safety stuff and teaching me the whole 9 yards. And we were hunting, and it was on an afternoon hunt, and we was out, and he was just walking, and I actually got to carry. I had an old, remember the old Harrington Richardson or the Topper single shot shotguns that they had back?
Shotguns,
yeah. And I had one of those, and it was a 20 gauge, and I was just a little guy, but it had a 20 gauge and a 410 barrel, but I got more comfortable with the 20 gauge barrel for whatever reason. I don't know why. And we went around this little point, and a squirrel jumps up on the tree, and just instinctively I throw my shotgun up and I shoot. And I looked at my dad, and I said, I'll get him next time. And he says, son, you got him this time. I said, what? And he's like, yeah. And I mean, it was like shooting a monster buck to me. You know what I mean? I was just a little guy, you know, and it was like, wow, it's so cool. And it's like, from that moment on, I was just completely hooked, man, just being outside and in the woods and hunting. And ever since then, I mean, I've hunted, you know, a little bit of everything around here anyway, you know, from turkey and deer and everything else. So, but there's nothing that replaces being in the woods in November when those babies are cranking, you know.
That's right. That, to me, there's nothing more I enjoy, nothing more than I've ever done in my life than I do. I get the excitement out there, you know, like you spend all these hours in the summertime prepping and getting ready and setting food plots. And, you know, Chris has been right along there with me, you know, doing it with me. And I don't know if he has the same ambition or the same hunger for it, but he's out there hustling with me, doing it all as well. And, you know, it's fun to have that camaraderie, you know, with your partners out there, and both of you like something together. And, you know, whether I kill that big buck or whether he kills it, as long as one of us does, you know, that it's worth it, or even seeing it, you know. So.
Oh, let me tell you, I don't know. My son Braxton, he come down there and trained with us a little bit too that day. And he was telling me, he says, he comes back here last year, or this is a couple years ago, maybe. And it was right around the sweet time. It was mid-November, you know, and all this stuff. And he went out bow hunting, and he comes back here, and it was just after dark, and he come off his stand, and he comes back to the house, and he's shaking. He's so excited. He's shaking. And I said, did you shoot one? He says, no, I didn't shoot one. He said, but Dad, I got to tell you. And I said, what's that? He said, I seen 6 bucks while I was in the stand today. And I said, yeah. And he said, they're stupid. They're stupid right now. He's like, they were just running under my stand.
That's right.
I said, that's what this time of year is all about, buddy.
That's
I was like,
right. That's the right.
And, you know, and I've kind of taught him too, you know, he's got enough respect and stuff to obviously be respectful on properties, but he also respects and appreciates a young buck. And this kid, even before he'd ever shot a buck, even before he'd ever killed a buck, he actually had enough, sportsmanship, if you will, to let the young guys, those 2-year-old deer, man, you just don't shoot them, you know. And he would let these little 14-inch 8-points just go ahead and walk and let them go, you know, because if you ever want to get a 150 class, son, you got to let those little guys go, you know.
That's right.
And he's been living by that motto ever since, you know, and he's turned out to be a really good hunter. So, but I'll tell you, you know, that's, which I'm really excited about the black powder thing. I've never done it. And when I got that rifle, I don't even know why I had an interest in getting that, but I thought, you know what? So I ordered one, and it's a Traditions. And it's their Kentucky, long rifle. It's made off, you know, like the Kentucky rifle, flintlock. And I got it, and I done a little research and stuff. So I go out yesterday, and I got to shoot it just out back here of the house, you know, one time. And I was thinking, gosh, I don't know what I'm doing. You know, I have no clue. And I was surprised. I had my wife film it, which I actually ended up posting a little video of it. But and it was actually a really fast ignition. Like, it wasn't like a hang fire or anything. But even though it appeared to be fast to everybody else, how slow it was to me behind that shoulder and that arm. I mean, I was literally going, like, I was flinching, you know what I mean? And I've shot my whole life, but that big flash coming out of the flash pan right there in your face, I'd never experienced that before. And I was like, and I turned around and looked at my wife. I was like, that's cool. Like, that's really cool. So that's my new thing. I'm going to try to really put in some practice over the next few weeks here and actually get a little bit of range time in with that. And I'm hoping to be able to take one in muzzleloader season or even in gun season with that flintlock. I just think that would be so cool. So we'll see how that goes.
Let me ask you about that. Was there a lot of smoke with it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. See, that's the one thing, like, that's one thing that I'm not a big fan of, because it's hard to see if you made that shot right away with that smoke.
Yep.
So,
well, and I think that just kind of adds to it too, because I watched some guys on YouTube, you know, they do these primitive type hunts, and these guys were shooting these flintlocks, and you know, when you're shooting, obviously, you know, with the type of rifles you're shooting, you know, when you're doing your reviews and stuff, those guys are like laser beams. You know, when you're starting to shoot the big calibers and stuff, even up to the you know, the bolt guns and stuff. But I'll tell you, the thing that really got me the most was you know, when they shoot these rifles and just how inaccurate they are by comparison standards to what we're used to now.
Right.
You know, and you're shooting shooting a 50 caliber round ball, you know, as opposed to shooting, you know, an actual a projectile that's
right. Yep.
yeah, and
Yep.
that projectile that's ballistically coefficient, it's perfectly
Yep.
designed to stabilize, you know, and I'm excited. You know, I think, which I mean, I haven't really seen anything yet, but as far as been able to test it and stuff, I'm going to be realistic and say 50 yards is probably it's
Right.
probably stretching it. You know, it's
Right.
going to be like hunting with a bow to
Right.
me. You know what I
Right.
mean? So,
Yep.
but it should be a lot of fun
Yeah,
anyway.
that's
So
what I
we'll
was
see
going to
how that
say.
goes.
It's a new adventure. So
Absolutely. So you got your YouTube going, you're doing that stuff. And what all are you going to, you're going to do firearm reviews and stuff. Are you going to do any hunting
yeah,
videos, you think, or no?
yeah. I talked to my old manager about getting me some better cameras and microphones. And my buddy Tim Sylvia, you know, former world champion, he has his own hunting show. So I've been reaching out to different people because, you know, he's already established with that. But like we're gonna try to get other. I've been writing different manufacturers and like different products and try to get them out there to sponsor us or loan it to us to let us see how we like it and do a review on it. So and then have testimonial by both of us how we liked it, how we didn't like it. You know, and I think the one thing people appreciate is the honesty of something. You know, like if you're
Absolutely.
getting sponsored by somebody, just because you're getting sponsored, you know, do you tell the negative parts of it? You know, like does it sound plastically? Is it plastic? You know, how's it feel in your hand? You know, all those things come into account. But when you're given to you, you know, how much of that stuff do you want to disclose to it? You know,
Right.
and
Right.
especially if you're trying to build a business or rapport with them, you know, you don't want to knock it too much, but there is a fine difference line in higher end weapons that I found, like that Remington 700. It was custom built, and that thing is dead on. I mean, that I've never shot a rifle with the action like that. Just the whole thing. And that Bagara that I got is good, but that Ruger, that simple 308 Ruger that I got, that thing shot just as well as any of them. You know, for a $300 gun, you know, you're not going to beat that. So.
Well, that's what I remember when you were doing you done a little poll thing on Facebook here a while back, and I kind of recommended, I was like, that Remington 700 action is almost every top gun in the world, you know,
Yep.
that they build these chassis around is built on that
Around
Remington
it.
action.
Yep.
That's a
Yep.
great action,
Yep.
you know, and you see a lot of these, you know, these calibers and, you know, the Creedmoor changed a lot when they come out with that 6.5 Creedmoor, because it allowed us to see a different ballistic coefficient. Now, granted, that doesn't mean a whole lot when you're shooting 200, 300, 400 yards, but when you're shooting 800 out to 1,000, 1,200,
Makes
1,500
all
yards,
the difference in the world. Yeah.
yeah, buddy. You know, so
Yep.
and that's the thing, is that's kind of where the 308 loses its ass, is about 1,000 to
Yep.
1,200, and
Yep.
you know, those other more ballistic, more coefficient rounds are traveling, and I think that's the 300, what's that new 300 that they have out that's supposed to be even, the ballistic coefficient is even higher than the 6.5 Creedmoor. And then the 6mm arc is
The
another one
300
that's
PRC.
PRC.
Yeah.
Yep. And then the 6mm arc is one that everybody's doing in the AR platforms. That's really super accurate and doing well so far. So, you know, and they're always going to be advancing, you know, you know how that
Always.
goes.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we'll look forward to that, and I'm hoping we can get some people checking your channel out, you know, for the gun reviews and stuff. And then looking forward to some hunting type stuff coming out of it too. So, and that's the big thing, man, is, you know, like my channel here, you know, when I started this off originally, my channel was going to be completely about guns and firearm type stuff, hence Leducator, you know, that's where the name came. But then when the idiot come to town, and, you know, I didn't know how else to get the word back to him that I would accept that fight, other than I know he's very full of vanity and pride. And I knew if I was to call him out, so to speak, on YouTube, that maybe it would get his attention. So that's kind of how this platform started for me. It was never about this for me. It was always going to be about outdoors and guns. So, you know, that changed a lot of things on my end too. So I have since started a second channel that is going to be designated to firearms and training, you know, strength conditioning training, firearms, as well as, you know, different things all around the related type stuff. And and I've kind of just now taken off with that. Like, I've literally only posted a couple of videos on it or whatever. So I'm actually kind of excited about that. And I know it's never going to get monetized because YouTube does not like the gun stuff at all.
That's right.
my videos that actually have guns in them at all, I usually get a little thing immediately from YouTube back that's got a little yellow strike, not a strike, but where they limit the advertising that they can actually have on the videos.
Right.
So, but I don't care. That's not what it's about. I want to do it just
Right.
for fun and actually, be able to do my thing with it. So, and I got to tell you, while I've got you here, and I won't hold y'all leaving on a Sunday evening, but I got to ask you, we have, which Terry, I think Terry's having some problems on his channel there, to be able to do much. I don't know how active he can be, but Terry is part of, a thing, another channel. It's Sovereign Soul Unchained Mind that normally is on with us. But the powers that be at YouTube didn't like his freedom of speech, so they've give him a strike for now, so he's out for a week. But Terry is part of a show that they do on Tuesday nights called Tinfoil Hat Tuesday Nights, and they are all about kind of diving into the stuff that a lot of people don't necessarily like to talk about, or like to deny, or like to say isn't true or is true or whatever. And a lot of people call it conspiracies or whatever. But you are kind of a big on UFO guy. Is that right?
Huge.
We would love to have you on Tuesday night.
I know more about that. I've been to Skinwalker Ranch twice. I went and ate with Thomas Winterton, as superintendent of the ranch. My wife took me out to Area 51 for our anniversary. I was a big skeptic, like I did not believe in any of that stuff. And my first martial arts teacher, mixed martial arts teacher, is a genius, and he works with brain stuff all the time. And it's called Freer Logic and Technologies, but he made this game called Play Attention. Extremely smart person. And I went, and one time they were looking at the old alien autopsy back that was supposed to be made in the 40s, and it was a fake or whatnot. But I remember looking at that and like, oh man, great. You guys believe in Sasquatch next. And I'll be dang, fast forward all these years later, one of my friends, who's a contractor, he said, hey man, what do you think about aliens, UFOs? I'm like, well, they don't exist. And he's like, but what if you heard astronauts or presidents? I'm like, well, yeah, I believe it, but they never have. And he said, but they have. And I'm like, come on. I said, it'd be world news. So there was this guy named Stephen Greer who came to Asheville. It was from Asheville, but he had testimony from Edgar Mitchell and Gordon Cooper about their trips to the moon, and how a lot of the people in the military told them that these projects were real. And we went there, and then I went to another one of his meetings with a CE5 protocol thing that they call it. You have to look into all this stuff. But we were coming back from dropping my daughter off in Iowa on Interstate 80 by the truck stop. And I'll never forget this. We're driving down the road after we dropped my daughter off and coming back. And she says, I want you to look at that light up there. And I'm like, oh, that's one of those, the power poles, the beacon red light. And I thought that's what it was. I'm like, that's a power pole, or one of those towers. And she said, no, it's not. She said, I've been watching it. So we pulled over off the interstate on the junction, on the exits off the interstate. And I got out and I'm like, man, it's not. And I started looking at it, and she got out. We were looking at it now on the interstate. Now, like this red glowing ball of light was in the sky. And my daughter Lucia said, let me see. And we both turned and said, no, you're not getting out of the car. And we looked back, it was gone. And on everything I am, as soon as we started flipping out about it, I'm like, oh my gosh, it reappeared on the same side of the highway that we were on. And I was dumbstruck. I couldn't believe it. And I said, what is that? And she's like, I don't know. And we have out here, I just did a podcast on this the other day. We have out here in North Carolina called the Brown Mountain Lights. Mm-hmm. And I've gone out to where my in-laws live, and I've sat there for 4 or 5 hours, never seen a thing. Well, one of my students tells me, hey, those lights over in Cherokee, they're called the Thomas Divide, and they have their own history. And I'm like, come on. And so I drive 30 minutes down the road with 10 of my students, and to go look at these. And I'm thinking, yeah, right. We get out there, and sure enough, they are levitating across the parkway. And I said, that's car lights. I said, that's got to be car lights or tail lights. So like, hey, there's no cars over there. So we drove over the next day and went and looked, and there's no roads. There's not any way you can get over there. So it's an 11-mile hike in and out, and all the way in and out together. So me and my students went out there and hiked it. And one of my students is one of my fighters. He's 6'5", 280 pounds. And we get out to the spot where we can see that. And we have some of our students setting back over where the lookout where we can see it. And, he's like, man, right there's your lights. And there's a bear thing where you put your food in and pull up so the bear can't get it. And we're looking at it, and then he goes, we need to go. We need to go now. And I'm like, why? And he said, we need to go now. And I looked, I said, what do you see? And he said, look over there. And there was 3 balls of red light coming across the parkway. And I started giggling because here he is, a monster of him. He's your size, and he's like, we need to go now. I'm like, let's sit here and meditate and call him. And he said, we're not calling no one but my mama. And he said, we call no one but my mama. And he said, don't do that kind of crazy shit. And I started laughing at him. Well, then they start getting closer. And here we are, grown ass men running in the dark with our flashlights, and like he's shining in the tree. He falls over, and I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like looking for panthers and bears. I'm like, dude, there's no panthers and bears. He's from Iowa, and it was too funny. But we get going down the road and down the trail, which if you fall off some of these parts, it's a 300 drop fall. Oh. And the people on the other side of the parkway, they call us like, hey, those lights are back where you guys were at, and which was about a mile back from, because we were hauling ass. It's funny because we're grown men that fight for a living, and that lights in the sky scare us. But it was so funny. But we got almost back to our car, and he said, look, and we looked back, and the entire parkway, like where we just came from, was glowing blue. And one of my students put a picture of it up. I mean, it's insane, but you can't appreciate it. Me telling you something, it doesn't mean nothing, but when you see it with your own eyes. So anytime I have friends or guests that come out here, I always take them over to the Thomas Divide lookout and let them see them, because it's pretty interesting. And then real quick, Congress, if you look it up, Congress is having open hearings about that. They're no longer called UFOs; they're now called UAPs, and that we are now on the verge of admitting that we're trying to reverse engineer these things. But I'm a total sci-fi geek when it comes to this stuff. But I could go on all night about that.
We would definitely love to have you on Tuesday night on our Tinfoil Hat Tuesday, and. As far as this week, there's not going to be one on his channel. It's been struck, and that takes him out, I think, from being able to post content for a week. I'm going to talk with him. If he's cool with it, we'll see if we can't maybe run it on my channel. We'll try that. Right. If he wants to do it. If he doesn't, then he'll be back next, I assume, next week from Tuesday, the following Tuesday. And it's always around 9 or 9:30 p.m. Eastern time.
Okay. Yeah. Like I said, I get totally geeked out whenever it comes to stuff like that. My wife, in our basement, we have some of my friends, one of my friends' students, his buddy does FX type of modeling and makeup stuff. Like I got the Lost Boys from Michael from Lost Boys. I got a bunch of alien heads in my basement, and it creeps my kids out. They refuse to go in the basement because I have all these alien heads and masks down there. But like when it comes to the paranormal type stuff, I'm a big time geek about it. So.
Now the truth comes out. See, Spencer had invited me to come down and train in his gym, but the reality is he just wanted to get me down there to see if I could outrun. To see if my big ass could outrun his other fighter's big ass.
That's exactly what my buddy said. He said, I don't have to outrun them. I just got to outrun you. Yep. So
that's good times, man. That's awesome.
But we I post, like I'm a big time geek about it. Anytime I see something that the Pentagon released or the Congress has released, I post on my Facebook page. Like, and I talk to my students, like I never bring it up because you don't want to bring up your personal beliefs or your interests to your students, especially if they think you're absolutely out of your mind. You know, I got police officers, school teachers, you name it. I got, then they start seeing that UFO stuff and they're like, wait a second, you know, so I don't ever bring that up. So.
Well, that's the good thing about being on with Sovereign and Terry on that channel and on that Tuesday night is, man, it's the gloves are off, so to speak. I mean, they open up the can on all kinds of different stuff, man. And
I'd love to be a part of it and tell some of my experiences. So,
I think it's right up your alley from what you're talking about, because, you know, and the truth is, you know, I think we all start kind of as skeptics of, I mean, basically everything. I mean, you know, I had somebody ask me here recently about, you know, the Sasquatch thing or whatever, because you said that just made me remind me. And I said, well, here's the thing, you know, do I think necessarily that there is a primate in the United States or whatever? I don't know. I don't know. I will say that an animal that large that has not been discovered yet in the United States is hard to believe. But if I think he's real, I think it's a biological thing. I don't think he's literally like getting, you know, vanishing like they say, you know, and he's like hanging out with Elvis type thing. You know what I mean? Like, you know, so, I mean, is it so outlandish to think that it could happen? No, I don't think so. I don't know, but I don't think so. You know, but honestly, if in fact the universe is as vast as they say it is, if in fact that is true, are we not silly and selfish to think that we would be alone? Really?
The only one. That's right.
You know what I mean?
Well, here's a tidbit of fact. They didn't start throughout history. Like there's been rock paintings and petroglyphs and hieroglyphs, even in Egypt, of flying devices. And then we started seeing them in the 40s after we set off the nuclear bombs, is whenever they start having flash sightings of them. So I think it has a lot to do with that. And how our Congress has said that a lot of these, and you can look this up, you know, congressional hearing about them being over nuclear silos and over nuclear weapons. I think there's something to that. And, but then I can go off on a tangent. So, but I have seen, like, I'm not the only UFC fighter, you know, GSP, he has to, I guess he'll have to speak on his encounter, but I don't think I've ever seen an alien. I've never seen a Bigfoot. I've never seen anything like that, but I have seen something. I know what it wasn't, you know, and I've had a couple of experiences of that I know it wasn't a plane. It wasn't a shooting star. It wasn't a satellite, you know, but I'm not saying it was extraterrestrial, but I know what it wasn't, you know.
Sure.
Well, see, let me ask here's the question. If they have reverse engineered these things,
Bob Lazar,
it's probably not new to them. You know what I mean? It was probably not new to them when we first heard of it. But if they've reverse engineered these things, how many of these things do we see that are actually ours, quote unquote, so to speak?
Exactly. You know? Yeah, absolutely. Well, I don't know if you're familiar with the Bob Lazar case, but he passed 3 polygraph tests. You know, he went on the news and talked about, he was the guy who opened Area 51 up back in the 80s, but he has stuck to his story. He's been on the Joe Rogan podcast several times, and he's kind of got Joe thinking, you know, that there's some credibility to what he said. Either he's the best bullshitter of all time, or all the things that he said, you know, like an example, he said element 115 was what fueled these things. And that wasn't even on our periodic table then. And now, 30 years later, it is. So there, a lot of the things he said that his security, the way he got into S4 was the hand densifier. It measured the density in your bones and the mass of your hand. And everybody said, "Oh, that's sci-fi." And now Jeremy Corbell has now shown that at the place that they show that these things actually exist and have existed, that you put your hand down and it scans your hand density. So everything that guy said has come true. So I guess it's just who you decide to believe. So,
well, my question is, how much green natural substance had Joe Rogan been partaking in during that podcast?
Right.
I'm
Well,
just
yeah,
kidding.
but that's true. That's true. But when you have other former government officials like
Right.
Edgar Mitchell or astronauts, like if we trust these people with our everyday life, or trust them enough to go to the moon, or over nuclear clearances, then we have to take their word for something if we're trusting them with our everyday life. So I believe. I don't believe everything I hear, but it's not too far fetched to think that, that we'd be ants to these things, if they are real. So.
Sure. And that's the thing too, is like I said, it would be selfish for us to think that we would be alone if the universe is truly as vast as they say.
Absolutely. It says in the Bible that God created the heavens and the earth. So it didn't limit to just us, and not to go into a whole biblical kick, but it talks about the watchers and the fallen angels. My wife is convinced that it's demonic, which it could be, I guess, but I don't know. We don't know. I don't think we can grasp half the things that are real, so.
Man, he's going to fit right in.
Do you suppose these vehicles could be interdimensional rather?
That's one of the theories. That's exactly one of the theories. So and then the new one is that they are that they've been here, that they live here amongst us, like under our oceans and stuff like that. Is one of the new ones. There's whenever we talk, the next time we talk, I'll have the notes in front of me that you can look and see all this. And there's a memo release called the Wilson Davis memo, and it's by Dr. Eric Davis and the Admiral Wilson, and they talk about it. And then whenever this memo got leaked from Edgar Mitchell, whenever he passed away, his wife gave all these information, like all of his books and all of his notes that he had, but it goes into very strict detail, very informative detail about yes, these programs exist in our government, but they took it out and they put it in private sectors, so there was no oversight over it, like Lockheed and Lockheed Skunk Works and Boeing, all stuff. They said that's how they've done it, and we've reverse engineered these things. I mean, it's crazy. You can go on forever, but when they asked the Admiral and Wilson Davis about this, whether it was true or not, they said they didn't want to be asked that question. Why not say no? If it's total BS.
Right.
So
yeah,
But I don't know. Like I said, I could go on all night about this stuff, but
I agree with you.
My wife
is
with us. Yeah, good. My wife is telling me I had to put my kids to bed. So it was a good talk with you. Do you got any questions that don't make me sound batshit crazy?
I have a comment. I appreciate you coming. It was nice being able to see you kind of like in person. It was really cool for me. It's an honor. Thank you.
Thank you.
I definitely appreciate it. I appreciate you hanging out with us, Spencer. Get your kiddos to bed, and we will do this again. And remember, I'm going to put Terry in touch with you on Facebook for that tinfoil hat Tuesday. I think you really would fit in on that platform.
I'll fit in perfectly.
And I think you'd have a good time, and I think you'd be an excellent guest for them as well. So, but guys, one more time, this is Spencer the Kingfisher, UFC badass. In my opinion, one of the toughest guys to ever fight in the octagon. And it's been an absolute pleasure to have you here. I really appreciate you hanging out with us. You take care of yourself, and we will see you again soon.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
All right, buddy. Have a good one. Terry, you
what a guest. What
absolutely.
A guest, man. That was just plain fucking cool right there.
I'm telling you, and that's why I've been looking forward to this for a while. And I'd asked him to come on a long time ago, and he's always agreed to it. And I just, it was just one of those things where timing, and he's a busy guy and he runs his gym, and life kind of gets daily. I
always say life happens at life speed.
Isn't that true? Isn't that true? So, well, let me ask you this, Terry. What's going on in the world of Terry today, and what's going on? What's up with Sovereign, man? That's something else.
Well, I'm not exactly sure. He said it was something to do with hate speech, is all it said. He has appealed the decision. I don't know what it was. I don't know what was said. I don't know if it was an action. I don't know if it's something we played with someone else's. I'm not sure what happened there. I don't know. But I do know that he said they took down the channel for at least a week. Um, and as I said, that would take away this Tuesday's edition of Tinfoil Hat Tuesday. I'm going to
Right.
pose the question to him. Maybe we can have it on my channel. You know, we'll
Right.
see how that goes. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. That's completely up to him. But if not, you guys know you'll catch us on the next Tuesday, a week from Tuesday, around 9:30 is usually when we start. But as for
Awesome.
that's all the information I have, man. I'm sorry. I wish I knew more.
Me too. That's a shame, but nevertheless, hopefully we can get through this and get him back on the air pretty soon because I enjoy those streams as well. So, um, but here's where we're gonna kind of go. Oh yeah, and good old boy says he seems like a really good guy. He is such a good dude, man. He is. He when he heard about the issue that I was going through with the C word, and and we have a mutual friend that he's a gym partner of mine, when I was training actively down there, and he's a really good dude. And he had volunteered to come over and work with me, and we actually got to train a little bit together. And he is just a super laid back, humble guy, up for, whatever, super easy to talk to and full of knowledge, and just unbelievable how much fight knowledge you guys got. But overall, just an overall really good dude to boot, so that's, I knew I wanted to have him on. I mean, I knew immediately when I started doing the streams that I definitely wanted to be able to have Spencer on. So I'm glad that we got to do that tonight, and hopefully we can do that again in the future and go a little deeper into some different content and stuff, because I think that'd be a lot of fun.
I'll tell you what. You've seen how we do it on Tuesday, and
Mm-hmm.
you've seen my channel. It's getting to where it's just a community, so we just try to support each other, have each other on, see what's kicking, and just go with
Absolutely.
that. So, that whole
Abs-
uniting thing, I think, is starting to happen. We're showing people how it
Absolutely.
works.
Well, I'll tell you what, I won't hold you guys up. I know there's a few other people that are wanting to stream, and I think Artie's wanting to stream, and I think some other people, and I know we're kind of pulling off each other a little bit right now. So I know everybody will go back and watch the streams, and that's how it works anyway. But I do want to tell you guys, I appreciate you guys very, very deeply. You guys mean more than you'll ever know, hanging out with us and doing the things that we do. But it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun for me. It's a lot of fun for Terry, and I have no doubt about that. I can speak that freely. But I do want you guys to know that I think Uncle Artie, I don't know what time Uncle Artie is going to go on live. I don't know if he even is yet or not, but I know I've seen in the chat there's a few other people that are going live too. So, and Debo's Nation says he wants to chat with you, Terry. I just not seen that.
Well,
Um,
I'll tell you what, is it possible if are you getting ready to shut this live down?
yes, sir, I am.
Well, could you like
Unless
give
we
him?
have something else going.
Well, I'm saying, could you give him a link and then you can shut down if you want, and like me
Sure,
and you just bring him up before you go out, and then me and
absolutely.
him can stay in the backstage and actually have a talk.
I'll tell you what, if you want to just run the stream for a minute and let me step away, you guys are more than welcome to talk however you want to. Hang on just a second. I'll get the link up anyway. Let me get over here to it real fast.
And yes, Life Giant, if I can get my Discord, I'm not very good at it, but if I can figure it out, yes, I will speak with you in Discord. Life Giant Films.
Let's see here.
Hello, Lady Star.
Let's see, Terry, I'm coming here, buddy. I'm only going to put this. Oh, well, that's not working. Terry, do you have that? Because whatever reason, mine, I can't click that link.
The link
Can
to
you?
the
Yeah, can
if
you?
you look if let me
I
think
just
here
went
just a
back
second.
to yours and it copied it, but it didn't copy the
Well,
right thing.
right
I don't know
underneath
what's.
your screen in StreamYard, there should be a thing that says invite. Click on that, copy it to your clipboard, and then paste it in the chat.
Okay, let's see if it works. All right. Let's see if that does it. I think that done it.
There you go. There you go. See, you learned something new, huh?
Absolutely. Hey, I'm going to just for a second. I'm going to step away just for a second, if you don't mind, Terry, and I will be right back. But you're welcome to. Well, let me see if he's going to pop up first. Let
I
me
was
make
going to
sure.
say, I have no control of getting them on stage.
All right, all right, he's popped up here now. So, hey, Debos, how are you?
Hey, there we go.
Hey, hold on a sec. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, buddy. You're
Yes.
on.
Okay, perfect.
I'm going to step away just for a second. You and Terry are going to have it. Excuse me, just a second, okay?
Sure.
All right, Cam.
Are we
How you
live?
doing tonight, D-Bose?
Is it only us talking?
Yeah, it's just me and you. Go right ahead. We're still live, so you're welcome to go right ahead.
To say about last night, I knew that whenever he came up on the stream, I knew that something would happen, but I didn't realize it until it was too late. But I knew that he's been like that all the time when we talk to him, Wolvie.
Oh, a little upset about it?
No, I'm not upset about it, but I'm just happy the way you
No, I
guys
was saying
handled it.
he seemed to be upset by it.
Yeah, I've seen him
You
like
know?
he turns on people like there's no tomorrow. Even when he's on his his other stream there with BST or whatever it is. But the whole situation behind that is he showed up with BST or whatever it is there, back to Broken System, Broken Trust. He showed up at Kafar's house, and he didn't go on his property. But I mean, Kafar had his family there, and his kids were there. He went 30 minutes out of his way, so it's not like he just was taking him for a ride. You know what I mean? It's like he traveled 30 minutes to go to that guy's house, and he brought Broken Sister, Broken Trust with him, and that's why there's a little bit of heat there. And Kick was trying to get the information out of him, and he's tried that before, and I'm all about Kick. I mean, I think he's great. He's very professional in the way he talks, but Wolvie is just completely off the wall sometimes. And I think you guys handled that really well last night. So I just wanted to say that I appreciate you, and you did a really good job. And it was
Well,
probably a
thank you.
hard thing for you to go through.
Well, I didn't actually control anything. I let them take control, and it didn't work out too good. And then by the time I wrestled it back, I'd already slipped into anger over the whole thing just because it seemed ridiculous, and he felt like he was ambushed for whatever reason. Wolvie did. Kick had his questions, and I mean, it just evolved into what you seen.
Yeah. Oh well, it was. I mean, you guys handled it really well. So I just wanted to say that.
I
Yeah, I
must have
mean,
missed that.
well, I'd
What
say he
happened?
probably did feel a little low blowed by Kick. I understand what he means by that. I get it, but and it wasn't. Hell, I didn't know that was coming. I didn't. I had heard a story about people showing up at Kafar's house. I had no idea who it was. You know what I mean? I hadn't
Yeah.
heard all the details, and now I'm. Last night, throughout the evening, and then of course today, and now I'm hearing about it. I
Yeah. I
wish I
just
had
wanted to let you
known.
know. Yeah.
If I had known that was coming, maybe I would have done something differently. You know.
I don't know. I think you still would have let Kick up, even if you knew that. I think you're fair enough that, and Kick's a good guy. Like, I mean, he didn't do anything wrong. I don't think. I mean, they were both screaming back and forth each other at some point. And then I don't know. Were you there for the whole ordeal? You just couldn't get
Me?
in.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh well. I mean, it's stuff like that happens on the internet, I guess, eh?
Well, I guess that's what freedom of speech is about. I always tell people we have to protect the speech that we don't like more than the speech that we do, because no one gets upset and wants to protect anyone from speech they like to hear. Does that make
Yeah, that's
sense?
for sure. Yep.
You don't
Absolutely.
need a First Amendment if you agree.
Yep.
Think of it that way.
Right.
There's never
Right.
a need for it if you always agree. So
Yeah.
So I wish he hadn't gotten so angry, and I wish everything could have been different. And I don't know why. Do we know why they went to Kafar's house? And Broken System, Broken Trust, is that someone KFAR deals with on a normal basis?
Yeah, there's some heat back and forth there for a while, and he threatened to go to his children's school, and he actually showed up at the school, and yeah, it's not.
And then shows up at his house?
And well, not the same day, but he has showed up at. He doesn't even have kids that go to that school, I don't think. And I guess because K Park to me that he was showing up at his school, and I went online, and he was online, and I said, do you show up at other people's kids' schools? And he never said anything. And then shortly after that, he showed up at Kafar's house with Wolvie and approached him. And his neighbors were coming out too, and they were getting a little upset. And then they called the police after, and I think they just took off at that point when the police got there.
Well, that's a crazy, crazy story. I'm not sure why anyone would feel the need to do that over something said like on the internet. Really, like, I don't know. I don't get it. I didn't hear what was said. I don't know the whole backstory, but I have no reason, no matter what anybody says to me, to go visit their home, and I damn sure have no reason to make their children or them feel threatened that their children are threatened. That's ridiculous.
No, that's just silly.
Yeah,
that's unacceptable.
And that's the situation between KFAR and Kick is just kind of sticking up for KFAR. He tries to get to the bottom of things, and yeah, I don't think you can reason with that guy.
So what did I miss, Terry? What happened on a stream or something? Because I'm not privy to this.
It was our stream last night. In the middle of it, Wolvie came up. We were chatting with him, and then Kick asked to come up, so I let him up, and that's when this broke loose. It was like a runaway train for a minute.
I will have to go watch
it for a good long time.
Are we live
and
or
then,
is this backstage?
Yeah, we're live.
Yeah, we're live. We're live.
Yeah, we're live. But this is I'm a very pro. You say what you want to, buddy. It doesn't bother me on here. I mean, the only thing is and I say the same thing about in my chat. As long as people don't talk bad about my my panel and my chat, you can say. And then there have been people say some awful stuff about me on here, and it doesn't bother me a bit.
Well, I'll tell you what. I've even had people threaten my children.
Well, that's impressive.
I know, right? Did you see that comment?
You don't even have any.
The guys. I know the guys. That's why I didn't take it all that serious, because he obviously didn't know me that well. He said, because of your videos, I could stand right beside you in the grocery line and I would know you, but you wouldn't know me, which is probably possibly a true statement. And he said, but I would know which one of those little girls is yours. Now, although he obviously took a big swing and hit a big miss there, what kind of a person is so offended that they have to watch my channel just to be offended, and then to make a comment like that? What have I ever done to someone?
Who was this guy?
Hell, I don't know. It's some keyboard warrior on the internet. Who knows? They were trying to get my goat, evidently. Mine's a little bit harder to get.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
I apologize. I thought we were backstage. I didn't know if I should have said anything.
That's up to you guys. I left it live because I just want to let you guys have the stream for a minute. I wasn't sure what was going on, so
I told you we were still live, D-Bus. But yeah, I don't think you've said anything wrong, as far as I can tell.
That's all stuff that you've already knew, pretty much.
Well, I didn't know the whole backstory behind KFAR and all that stuff. I
don't think that's at all hidden. I think that's pretty much. I think KFAR and everybody else says that. So I don't think that's something that you have to feel like you're imposing on anybody. Right. So
well, I'm not looking to go against. I'm not looking to go against anybody. See, I'm trying not to have any enemies, and it gets difficult because although I may not consider somebody an enemy because they feel like I'm not on their side, they consider me one. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I'm doing everything I can.
Yep.
I'm doing everything I can to walk the line in between everybody so that we can find common ground, no matter who we are or what we believe, so that we can find that common ground. That's what I'm trying to do. I don't know if everybody understands, but that's what I'm trying to do.
I absolutely do, and I agree with it, and I appreciate it. Well, I'll tell you what, guys.
it can be difficult because I have my own opinions and ideas and beliefs too.
Absolutely. I'll tell you what, guys, I am going to wrap it up here. It's on a Sunday evening, so I don't want to go too late. I want to let everybody else have their streams. It's going to run things.
Yeah, I gotta go.
But I definitely appreciate everybody and stuff. And I'll give either one of you, if Debo's, if you got a last word, I always let my panel have a last word if you're interested.
Oh, I just wanted to come up and say peace with Ironton, and I thought he did a good job last night with what it was.
Oh,
Well,
he
I
always
appreciate
does,
you,
in my
sir.
opinion. Absolutely. And Terry, I'll give it to you, buddy. What's your last word for our chat?
As always, guys, hello and goodbye to you. Thanks for spending the evening with us. We really appreciate it. You know, we love each and every one of you, and you all know where to find us. Make sure you catch us right here. Thanks for having me up here, Educator, as always. And it
Absolutely.
was an honor.
Thank
I
you,
love
Educator.
the guest. Love the guest. It was a great show. And of course, Debos, as always, I appreciate you, your support, and always ready to talk anytime you want to talk.
All right, buddy. Anytime.
Absolutely. And I've
Break it up.
way about
You're roboting on us real
you
bad,
guys,
Captain.
Debos. Appreciate you coming up. I know we kind of got you there at the end and stuff, and I definitely appreciate Spencer hanging out with us tonight. Are you with me?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I wanted
we
to
are
ask
now.
him
You
a
were
few questions, but it's all right.
you were roboting pretty bad there for a minute, Cap.
Oh, okay. Well, sometimes it does that. You guys know that. So,
Yeah,
but
all good.
I appreciate everybody. I appreciate our chat hanging out with us. We're going to do this again soon. I apologize to everybody. I know this is a little different for me and what we normally do, but we're still kind of getting the swing of things. I guess that's kind of the best thing about it is we don't ever keep anything normal. So screw it. We have fun, right?
That's
But I
right.
appreciate my panel. I appreciate my chat. God bless you guys. We love you guys. You guys are what makes everything even worth doing it. So you guys mean more than you'll ever know, truly. I want everybody to know that that we're going to have a positive, blessed week. If you have not checked out Debo's Nation, please do so, as well as Terry over at Ironton Auditor. Their content is absolutely wonderful. And if you're not subscribed, shame on you. As well as make sure you check out Spencer's channel. We put the link in there earlier. And we're going to have him back on. I want to have him back on. I want to see him on Tinfoil Hot Tuesday too. I think that would be a really cool stream. But I definitely appreciate everybody hanging out with us. We're going to do this again. If we can't, we'll be back by Friday on Freedom Friday anyway, because that's our thing, right? So, but until then, stay blessed, stay driven, have a positive week, bless somebody else, be somebody else's corner man. Always look for that opportunity. Always. Keep your eye peeled. It's there, I promise. And if you stay focused, stay driven, and you train like you fight, you'll fight like you train. God bless you guys. We'll see you soon.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.